In this video, I'd like to look at an Android app that has a canvas and then uses some code to draw onto that canvas. The code can be found at the URL seen here. So there's no sort of action on this app. It's just the drawing of these two, I'll call them logos. So we want to see how this was made in code and then how it was put onto the screen, onto the layout. Okay. So we have the main activity. There's not much to it. It's just pretty much an empty default boilerplate main activity. So I didn't do anything here. But I made two classes and logo view and logo to view, and then used that code to place them in the layout. So let me look at the layout, even though that's sort of later on, but it's easier to explain. So this is how we got it onto the layout so that one can actually see it. So when in your code, you've created a logo, and you can sort of slowly build up. So you can sort of make a logo that's no more than like a color filling in the rectangle that you made for it, and then build up. So you can sort of see this as you go. But after you've written code, and it's code that what you see on a layout is, as you recall, a view. And so we're going to write a class that is sort of creating a particular view and sort of makes a canvas to draw and create a view. So when your code has the correct format here, that you know that you are making a view, then it becomes sort of a tag that you can add in your XML here in the layout. And notice the role here that the package is playing. So the name of the tag is com example draw shapes.logo view. So there's my package, com example draw shapes, and then the class logo view. And then I gave it some ID. I gave it an explicit width and height. I gave it a margin top and bottom, and I'm working within a constraint layout. So I constrained it I gave it a start, I gave it a horizontal constraint and a vertical constraint. In this case, both to the parent. Okay, so I need these because I'm in a constraint layout. I just didn't want to be quite on the edge, so that's why I need these. I wanted to, you'll see when I work in logo view, then I'm just sort of working with the canvas width and height, sort of grabbing those parameters sort of dynamically, so they're set here in design. And then I will sort of grab them over in code. Okay, and an ID. Okay, so that is it for the activity main. And we saw main activity where there was pretty much nothing. And so let's start looking at logo view. And here is, I should acknowledge the YouTube video that I watched that helped me a lot get started. And the class that you're making. So I sort of started over here making the class, but then I added this, that it was overloading the constructor. And this is what makes it sort of understood as sort of making a canvas, making it a view. Okay, so let's have a peek at the imports, canvas and color and paint. So these are sort of drawing things and a view. Okay. So again, so I started off just sort of right-clicking here and saying add a class, and then I was explicitly typing some of this stuff, not all of it, but when you sort of start typing this, then it sort of like pops up and understands it and sort of fills in some for you. But I had to do some explicit typing because it had no idea that then I wanted sort of, then I was sort of making a view. Okay. So here you see this, and then I am making a view. That what I'm making is a view. Okay. And it has a draw method. Okay. So this is all just the sort of standard stuff that you do, that if you want to do this, you see if there's anything hiding over there. No, there's nothing hiding over there. Okay, so I'm going to start. I have a canvas. It comes in with method, and I'm going to make some paint sort of to control my colors and draw things, paint things onto my canvas. So this is me setting up that I'm going to have some paint. And this is just this target logo, which you can see over here. So it's fairly simple. I'm getting the canvas height and width. So that is, again, so I gave it a width and a height over in the layout. And then this is me grabbing that from the layout. So what is your height? What is your width? I'm sort of querying it. Okay, and then I'm going to set the color to red. So I'm going to paint first in red. And this is going to be the large outer circle. And by default, it fills. We'll see in the other logo, I will change it from fill. But this one is by default fill. So I didn't have to say fill because that was the default, but I did have to say red. And there's a method for drawing a circle, and it has 4 parameters. The center of the circle horizontally, the center of the circle vertically, the radius of the circle, and then the paint, because I might have different colors. I'm going to have one paint and change its colors, but I could have multiple paints. I could have red paint and white paint and then work that way. But I kept changing. I had one paint and I changed the color of it, but I could have multiple paints. So that's why the paint is a parameter in the method. So I wanted it to be centered in the middle. And so I took my width and divided it by 2. It wants these parameters to be floats. So I'm dividing it by 2.0f to sort of say this cast this number as a float, or it was complaining. The height by 2f. Then my radius, I want that outer circle to sort of fill the width. So I made it half the width, the radius of the circle half the width, and painted it. And my paint at this stage was red. Now I'm switching my paint to white. So now I'm drawing this circle, and the order is each consecutive thing is in front of the other one, sort of by default. Now you can probably control that another way, but I'm just controlling it by the order of the code in which I write the code. So this white circle is on top of the outer red circle. And so it will hide, what's ever behind it, it will hide of the first red circle. Well, I made it white. I gave it the same center, half the width, half the height. And then I made it 2/3 the previous width and used my paint, which is now white. Changed my paint to red, same horizontal center, same vertical center. And now this time my radius is 1/3 of the original width. So that gave me my target shape. Okay. So, and then again, it was here in the activity main, and the tag, you produce a tag. Once you set up your class the right way, then it's creating a view, then it becomes a tag that's available. The package plays an important role. Sometimes I find it, if it changed for any reason, if I was copying code from some other example which had a different package, one approach is to start typing in anew, and it will recognize, it might, if you had something different and you edit it, it might not recognize it. So there are two things you might do, and that is to sort of start a new tag to retyping it. And the other possibility is, I think, under build, clean the project. So either of those usually, sometimes it's not recognizing something, and either of those two methods usually sort of help out. Let's have a look at logo 2. Just showing you some other drawings. So it's the same up here, the same overloading the constructor, overloading the draw method, overwriting the draw method, make a paint, get the width and the height. And this time I set the color to blue, as you can see. I'm going to work with, down here, I set it to stroke. So I said before I didn't have to say that it was fill, then it was filling, because that was the default. But here I am changing it to a stroke style. So this will just be the outside of something. So and then I sort of, this is probably a little bit out of order, but because I moved to a stroke style, then I wanted to set the stroke width. And again, it wants it to be a float. So there's my little F to make it a float. And the default width, there will be a default stroke width, but it will be very small. And so I wanted to thicken it up a bit. So I made it a stroke width of 20. Now, when I wanted to draw some lines. I'm drawing this big sort of X here. And I wanted to use the width and the height again to get it to sort of fill the canvas. And here it was sort of very insistent that I contain it in this if the height's not null and if the width's not null. So it was sort of complaining, and then it offered up its own solution, which was this. And so I sort of went with it. So, okay. So now we are drawing a line, and there are 5 parameters: the starting X, the starting Y, the stopping X, the stopping Y, and then the paint. So this first one I started at 0, 0, which was this sort of, what is that? The top left corner. And my stopping X and stopping Y, my stopping X was the width, multiplying the canvas width by 1.0 F to cast it as a float. The stop Y was the canvas height times 1.0 F, and that was the lower right. So when you're drawing things with computers, you work from left to right and top to bottom. And then my paint was blue, and I'm just making a line. So that was that blue line. I made another blue line. This one started on the left, but at the bottom. And then it ended at on the right, but at the top. And it was also the paint, which was blue. Now, I didn't have to say stroke there, because a line is by default stroke. So I didn't have to, I could have switched to the stroke style up here, but I did not. I drew the line and there was no sort of fill in the line anyway. Okay, but now I've changed my style to stroke and I'm drawing a rectangle. So this is this sort of empty rectangle here. And a rectangle has, again, 4 parameters, where to start. So the sort of the upper left corner, the X, and then the Y, and then the lower right corner, the X and the Y. So I started off about a quarter of the way over and a quarter of the way down. So quarter of the way over, quarter of the way down. That is that upper left corner of that rectangle. And then I go over, where am I at? Here to a third of the width, or sorry, 3/4 of the width, and down to 3/4 of the height. So that is that lower right-hand corner of the rectangle, and I used my paint, so it was blue. Okay, now I'm going to write some letters, and I changed the stroke width. So you can see I'm going to write the word hello, as you see. And because I'm in stroke, and also because I've thinned out the stroke width, you can actually see that it is sort of giving me the outline of the letter and not filling it in. Okay, so so I changed my stroke width to 10, and it wanted to be a float, so the F. I set my text size to 200. And here with the hello, I'm not working, mostly I've been working with canvas dimensions, some fraction of the canvas, but here I just decided to go with just pure numbers. So I went with 180 and 150, just sort of chose them quasi randomly, probably changed them till I liked it. But so that's just a different style. You can work with sort of absolute numbers, or you can work with fractions of your width and height. And then I drew the text where this is some X and Y, where it's positioned, and the text hello. And I usually, with text, I usually just sort of experiment a bit and see, you know, frankly, I'm just not sure if this is the X of the middle, or the X and the Y of the middle, or the right, or I don't know what it is horizontally. I don't know what it is vertically. So I just end up playing. Okay, then I wanted to make and I have not, oh, there it is. And this triangle, I make this little triangle, and you see that because I sort of hard-coded it in terms of numbers rather than making it relative to the canvas, that over here in my sort of preview and over here on my running it in my emulation, it appears in very different positions. And that's because I, you know, the scale, this in over here in my preview, it's giving the entire phone screen over to this logo. And that's not true over here. I'm not filling the whole screen with my logo. So that is that disparity. If I want to do better, then I would work more like this with relative to the canvas. Okay, but I'm going to make a path. So I'm making a triangle. I start with, I instantiate a path. My first thing is a move to. There will be some default point that I'm starting off, maybe 0, 0, I don't know, but I don't want to draw that. I don't want a line starting there. I already had some lines starting there. I don't want to draw another one. So my first thing is to move to, so I'm not drawing, but I'm moving my path to a starting place. Then I'm going to draw a line starting from here, and this is just X, Y, horizontal or vertical position. And then I'm going to draw a line from there to here. So the same Y, but a smaller X. So that is sort of a horizontal line. So that's the horizontal line part of the triangle. Then I'm going to make another line. I'm going to keep the same X and reduce the Y. So I'm moving, if I'm reducing the Y, I'm moving up because my natural motion is down. And so that's that vertical part of the triangle. And then I said close the path. So it makes a line to the original starting point. And then that is not drawn at this stage. That's just sort of making in memory some path. And then here we are drawing it. And there are more drawing methods. There's probably some ellipse and other things, but I just wanted to show you some of this, and I thank you for your attention.